Let's just pick up on what we saw a little bit in David Blevins' report. Of course, counting is going to resume in Northern Ireland in an hour or so, 2 hours' time. How will a UK government deal with the fact that Sinn Féin are about to be the largest party in the Northern Ireland Assembly?
Well, I think it's important to wait and see the final result. The big focus has to be on making sure we get the protocol to work. I think Sir Geoffrey Donaldson was right on that clip that you just showed. But let's wait and see the final result. Of course, clearly the predictions that Sinn Féin has done well, but of course the unionist parties collectively are also a significant part of this vote, and the other parties as well, the Alliance Party and so on. The important focus, I know, from the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland is to make sure that the protocol works and is fixed as soon as possible, because clearly it is an issue for the people of Northern Ireland, and it's the right thing for us to be focused on.
Yeah, let's pick up on a couple of those points. And that protocol, Sir Geoffrey Donaldson says that he basically wants it just torn up. Is that something the UK government would do?
Well, as Brandon Lewis, the Northern Ireland Secretary, said, that all options remain on the table. The important thing is to try and make sure we work with the parties in Northern Ireland, but also with the European Commission to make sure that we leave no stone unturned. To try and make it work. But of course, we need to make sure that all our options are available to us, because ultimately, the thing to remember is Northern Ireland is very much part of the family that is the United Kingdom.
I mean, just on that then, I mean, of course, fine words, all options on the table, but you are going to, with whatever decision is made, upset someone in this particular decision, be it the Unionists in Ireland or the EU. Which ones are you going to upset?
Well, I don't think it's a trade-off. I think the important thing is that we put the people of Northern Ireland front and centre. If that is what we do as our priority, and we evidence this, then all sides, whether it's the EU or ourselves, should be working towards making the lives of the people of Northern Ireland much, much better, and for them to see that both the EU and the UK government are working together to get the right outcome. Ultimately, if you put them as the people that we want to make sure we deliver for all communities, then I think it's right to try and work as hard as we can to deliver for them and make the protocol work. That is our priority. That is what the Northern Ireland Secretary will do. But at the same time, he will not compromise on making sure that Northern Ireland is very much part of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, you've had years to do that, so you'll forgive viewers for not being convinced that it can be done. But let's move on to the local elections on this island. The Conservative Party have lost nearly 500 council seats. Simple question, is Boris Johnson still an electoral asset for the Conservatives?
So if you look at the local elections, and you have to remember, we are in midterm, coming out of the COVID pandemic into a global battle against inflation, with energy prices now spiking because of the illegal war in the Ukraine. Take London, for example. Of course, I was out campaigning in Wandsworth, and we lost Wandsworth, and of course, marginally lost Westminster as well, but we gained Harrow in London, and so it's important that we listen to our candidates, to our very good councillors, of course, the ones that succeeded and the ones that didn't. But look at other parts of the country. Nuneaton, Newcastle-under-Lyme, first time where the Conservatives in 25 years now have control of Newcastle-under-Lyme. This has not been a good night for Sir Keir Starmer in terms of going forward. This is a result from a local election where we are in midterm out of a pandemic and, of course, battling this global battle against inflation. And so it's right that people were concerned. There are some local issues that we have to address as well as national issues, and we'll listen to those. We will not be complacent. We'll listen to what people are telling us, and we must do better. And, of course, you've got the Queen's speech next week, and you'll see what we're bringing forward is a plan for jobs, a plan for the economy, a plan to deal with the backlog in the NHS, and, of course, make sure that national security, both abroad with war in Europe and at home, are front and centre. Controlling our borders, of course, is very much part of that national security plan.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hear you say that he was an asset. So let me put it to you.
He is an asset, absolutely.
Okay.
No, I was really trying. I was trying to give you some of the evidence of what I think happened with the local elections. But you look at the way Boris cuts through in places like Nuneaton, places like Newcastle under Lyme, other parts of the country as well. Harrow in London.
Other parts of the country, Mr. Zahawi. Sorry, let me just get my next question to you, because other parts of the country is exactly right, isn't it? Because the Tories have been wiped out in Wales, moved into third place in Scotland. So you're happy just being a party for English people?
Right. Well, let's take your point about Scotland. In 2017, Scotland, we had 115 councillors, went up to 275 councillors. So over doubled. So we already had a very high bar in Scotland. Now, when you start from such a high bar, you're bound to look at maybe losing some seats there. But of course, we're not going to be complacent. We want to make sure that we deal with some of the national issues, like the global battle against inflation, and of course the local issues as well. But I don't recognise your characterisation that we've been wiped out in Scotland. That's not true.
No, sorry, wiped out in Wales because you lost the only council that you held. Monmouthshire went to no overall control.
And we will try much harder to make sure that we deal with those issues, including the investment that's going into Wales in things like nuclear, renewables, and of course, other investments that we're making in Wales. This is a midterm local election that we have to listen to the voters on and have to continue to deliver. But we have a plan for jobs, we have a plan for the economy, a plan to deal with the NHS backlog, and of course, make sure that our borders are secure and deal with war in Europe. And all these things Boris Johnson is dealing with.
And let me put it to you this way then. After all the issues that have faced this government and the Prime Minister especially being fined and having to deal with politicians watching pornography in the House of Commons, there were some of your colleagues who, up to these elections, were saying that this will be a moment, this will be a test of the Prime Minister and whether we want to go on with him. Are you happy that he's passed that test and you're happy to go on with him? Are all your colleagues in agreement with that?
Well, my message to all of my colleagues, and I stood in 1997 in Erith and Thamesmead in South London, and I can tell you that people don't like to vote for split parties, for teams that are divided. And we are strongest when we are united. We've got a Queen's speech next week where we will demonstrate to the nation that the second half of this Parliament is all about dealing with repairing the economy, recovering from COVID, as I've just talked about, the backlog of the NHS and, of course, national security here at home, safer streets and, of course, abroad. All these things we have a plan for. It's, as I say, we're stronger when we are united, and that would be my message to all my colleagues. And you look at where we are making ground in places like the West Midlands, in Nuneaton, and of course Newcastle under Lyme. People want to see us focus not on issues like Partygate. By the way, Sir Keir Starmer, I think 1 in 3 of his questions at question time were on parties and actually neglecting cost of living. And of course, people see the hypocrisy of that now. You've seen the headlines this morning. And of course,
don't worry, Mr. Zahawi, I'll put those points to the Labour Party when they are on this programme later.
I'm sure you will. I'm just saying, I'm just reflecting on public opinion. People will look at that and will be uncomfortable with the hypocrisy. And the police have now obviously have to carry out their investigation, and let's see where that ends up.
Yeah, absolutely, we will do. And then finally, then, Mr. Zahawi, you talk about making changes. All the indications are that in the autumn budget there will be some help for the cost of living, but people are really dealing with all of that now. Why is the party putting off trying to help hard-working families who are really struggling to make ends meet through the summer, just to try and do it in the autumn?
Well, I don't think that's correct, with respect. We're not holding up with the Chancellor's putting £22 billion in the next 12 months because he recognises that we're in a global battle against inflation, as is in America, as is in the rest of Europe. with high inflation at the moment, spiking because of energy costs, 22 billion. So let's try and unpack some of that. You look at the taper relief, if people are on universal credit, that's an extra £1,000 for those people because of that relief. The national living wage, that's another £1,000. And then, of course, the national insurance changes he made in terms of the threshold, that's another £330 a year for the most people who are under pressure because of high energy costs, because of high utility bills. And of course, we'll continue to review that, continue to look at that. £1 billion going to local government who know who those people are, who are struggling with their weekly shop, who are struggling with their utility bills.
Okay, Mr.
All that is 22 billion in 12 months because the Chancellor is well aware of the pressure that people are under at the moment because of the spike in energy costs and, of course, the global fight against inflation.
Yes, it's a hell of a list of things, though, isn't it, Mr. Zahawi? And it's very, very expensive. I mean, reports from the Governor of the Bank of England saying that we're heading towards recession. People's bank balances really struggling to make ends meet. Where are you on this idea of a windfall tax on energy firms? We saw Shell's profits the other day. Huge.
So I think a couple of things on that. One, we need to make sure we get the investment in our gas assets in the North Sea, because clearly...
Mr. Zahawi, you know that the bosses of these companies have said they will keep investing even if they are taxed more.
Right, so we need to make sure that investment happens. Both Shell and BP... well, just hear me out a second. Both Shell and BP have announced, I know Shell, 25 billion in renewables, BP a similar number in hydrogen and in renewables to meet those important targets of net zero by 2050 to make sure that we preserve this precious planet. And of course, one last thing to remember is both Shell and BP pay double the corporation tax that other companies pay. So corporation tax for them is about 40% at the moment. If we want that investment, if we want in renewables, of course, getting our gas assets so that actually we don't rely on other countries for the gas that we're going to need anyway. Even if you're going to, we're going to move to a hydrogen economy, you still need gas in that economy. Those are the things that are important. And of course, the help that we are putting in, 22 billion over the next 12 months. All of that is the right thing to do. When the pandemic hit, both Shell and BP lost billions of pounds. That is pensioners' money. That is pension funds. Pensioners rely on those profits to be able to make sure that they can live well and pay for the things they need to pay for. So we have to look at this in the round and be responsible. We have a plan for the economy. We have a plan for jobs. Labour doesn't.